Alright, so far in our series on ICS, we've covered the incident commander, the command staff, and the general staff. Looking at our scenario, one car on fire, fuel leaking with 3 patients, we figured out that we can probably get by with an incident commander, a safety officer, and then the operations section. Let's take a look at that operations section and see how that part of the ICS system works. I've mentioned it before, but common terminology is key with ICS. Basically, you should be able to hand an org chart over to anyone and they be able to quickly and easily tell what a group is and why they are organized in a particular way. To make it easier, ICS breaks down its operations section using specific terms. Let's look at this org chart and see what's going on here. So starting from the bottom, we have a strike teams and we have task force. A strike team is a group of the same resources. For example, 7 police officers or 4 PCPs. And a task force is a group of different resources. 3 firefighters, a PCP, and an ACP. So for my example, we've got a PCP, an ACP, and a paramedic student. So we would call them a task force. We might tell this task force to go set up a triage area somewhere and start triaging all the patients. Each person in that task force will be called a unit. Sometimes units will be tied with a piece of equipment. For example, the ambulance won't work without the 2 paramedics. So in that case, we just group them all together as one single resource. So right now, this is great. Let's say that we had more strike teams or more task forces, say 10 of them. That's a lot for one person to manage. So ICS has a rule for that. It's called span of control. Basically, you should only be responsible for 3 to 7 units or resources. Any less and it's inefficient and you should be lumped in with somebody else. Any more and it gets too big to manage and your group should be split in 2. Stepping up from strike teams and task force, we have groups and divisions. Groups are divided by the type of job they're doing, whereas divisions are divided by geography. So we could have some medical groups, and then an east and a west division. In huge incidents, we may start to look at branches, which are just another way of dividing lots of groups or divisions. And they can be sorted by geography or specialty. Branches will be organized by Roman numerals. Alright, so we have our org chart for the operations section. It's nice and neat and tidy, and everyone knows where they're assigned. Like I said in the beginning, communication is key. To make sure everything runs smoothly, we'll follow the chain of command. So information will go up and down through the org chart, and not skip steps. It keeps things nice and organized and prevents information from getting lost. The last thing I want to talk about in this video are some of the key locations that you need to know in an incident. First up is the command post. Pretty self-explanatory. It's where you'll find the incident commander and all his staff. Next up will be the staging area, typically a parking lot or a large area where units who are waiting to be deployed are hanging out. The person in charge of the staging area is called the staging area manager. So as new people will show up to the incident, or as people finish jobs, they will go to him and check in. Ingress and egress routes are the ways in and out of the incident. It's important that they're clearly marked so we don't have safety issues or accidents, or have vehicles driving into operations that they shouldn't be. Lastly, since we are paramedics, we're often responsible for triage and treatment areas. Typically, we'll designate one area for triage, where patients can go to be sorted, and then a few more areas for treatment, ranking them from sick to not sick, with an area for the deceased. You should also have someone responsible for transportation, a transportation manager, who can keep track of who is leaving the incident and make sure everyone's been accounted for.